This right here is the Dr. ThunderSun show. Because of circumstances beyond his control, he will never show his face. But he vows to trigger your mind, stir your soul, and move your consciousness.
I want to thank everybody for tuning on in to the first episode of the Dr. ThunderSun show. I'm really geeked up because I want to stir your consciousness. You dig? Look here, let's get right into it. Some of the things that trip me out. One of the things that trip me out is why when we fight dogs, you go to jail. But if you fight humans, you can bet on it. You know what else trips me out? Why we pay military lesser than the NBA player. You know, why we pay someone who's risking their life less than a person who is hitting a ball out the ballpark or a three-pointer. How about this? The other day in the park, I seen these clones, and they were sitting up, chopping it up with one another, just, you know, having jokes, and I think they were drinking, maybe had a couple soda pops, and just eating snacks and talking a bunch of, you know how fellas talk, sitting on this here bench at the park. And they were just sitting there, they were talking about, yeah, my clona, what's up, and everything, you know, and it was like, yeah, my clona this and my clona that. And then this other guy comes up, and he says, it appears that he wasn't a clone, and he said, what's up, clonas? The clones on the bench looked at each other and they were like in disgust, and they was like, what did he just say? The other dude looked at the clones and he says, well, I said not This story is called Too Late. It starts off with a bunch of young fellas in college. I think they're at a club. And they're just having a great time and getting drunk and meeting females and who can get most numbers and all that. Well, at the same time, there was this girl and she had friends and they liked this particular crowd of guys. Well, to make a long story short, he was going off to the military and she liked him. Before the day he was about to go off to boot camp, she comes to the apartment where the fellas live. And she tells him, I'm pregnant. He looks at her like she's crazy. Like, you got me messed up. You done messed around with all the homies, and how are you gonna just say, it's my baby? She was like, but I was just only with you. And he didn't want to hear it. He grabbed his duffel bag and he headed out the door to get in the cab to go to boot camp. She grabs him by his jacket, falls down to his leg, and hangs on to it as he's walking out the door. He kicks her. He kicks her off of him and walks out the door, never to be seen. 9 years later, he's a captain in the military. He comes back to town. His homies are now successful businessmen. They having lunch. The homies say, why don't you go check out, what's her name? Because that baby looks just like you. And he got a birthmark in the same place. He was like, y'all stop playing with me, man. It ain't my baby. Y'all was with her too. They was like, hold up, player. Let us get something straight. We never, ever had sex with her. You need to go over there and check it out. So he buys balloons and a card, and he heads on over to her house. Her name is irrelevant because this could be anybody. He pulls up on a side of town that isn't very safe, poverty-stricken. He pulls up on a house, and there's this lady braiding a little girl's hair. There's a frown on the lady's face that looks like it's dwelt there forever. It ain't going nowhere. He gets out of the car and he leaves his pretty new wife in the car of his stretch Alexis. He dusts his dust off his captain's uniform and he walks up the stairs and he says hello. She does not reply. Actually, she tugs on the little girl's hair a little bit because he annoys her and the little girl cries out. He says hello again. She does not answer. And kids run from the backyard and run up the stairs past him. And he looks at one of the young men that are about 9 years old, and he looks at the boy, and automatically he knew that was his child. He didn't want to start no scene, but he did talk to the mom, and he asked the mom, you know, I've been out of his life for a long time, and if you forgive me, I'll be here for the second half. And he gives her this envelope, but she doesn't take it. He gives the little girl the balloon and the envelope. In the envelope, he says there's $5,000 in there. I would like to see my son. I will be taking him for his birthday tomorrow, if you don't mind. And he turns around and he walks to his brand new car with his new wife and he leaves. The next day he comes back. He pulls up to the house and there's ambulances and yellow tape and police cars and just a hectic scene. He runs up to the house and tries to break through the yellow tape, and he's stopped by ambulance workers and stuff. They said, sir, you can't go in the house. He says, well, my son's in there. What's going on? Well, what happened was, before he got there, she gave the kids a bath. And they're in the tub. And she told the 9-year-old, his son, to wash his hair. And she was going to wash his hair, but he said, you know, Mom, I'm old enough to wash my own hair. Let me do it. So he washes his hair. And soap gets in his eyes, and she says, lean back and let me get this soap out your eyes. And let me rinse this out of your hair. And she drowned him. She drowned the kid. She got locked up and she was in one of those wards, those mental institutions. Years later, they say she sits up in there rocking back and forth with just a little satisfying grin on her face. That story is called Too Late. And it's a true story. Have you ever thought about this? What if Obama could run for a third term? What if there was a law that we could get passed that allowed this president to go for a third term? And would he win? I think about things like that. And if he would win, you know what? How about this? Can we just maybe even have him be vice president? I don't know, something. But you know what? As long as African Americans, now they can tell their children, you can be anything in America, including president. Look, there's a couple of little concepts that I like to use, and one of them that I use mainly is Hollywood. So, y'all can follow along with me better when I use this expression, Hollywood. Hollywood is like fake. Yeah. Have you ever thought about this? Would you be scared if you were on a Hollywood set? No. Why? Because you know it's going to be all right. If you have faith, that's almost the same thing, right? Hollywood. My kids were scared of horror movies. I made a horror movie with them, and now when they see Freddy Krueger, they be like, oh, he's fake. So when I say Hollywood, you take that concept and you apply it to everything. You're walking down the street and somebody look at you weird, you'd be like, Hollywood. And keep on walking your path. These little things that we stress about really don't matter in the long run, especially when you know it's going to be okay. If you have faith in whoever your creator is. It's an expression, Hollywood, it's fake. It's almost like you have faith that everything's going to be okay in the long run, so why worry during the journey? Hollywood. You dig? Hollywood, baby. So we have a choice to make in this journey. To be happy, spread some light, or be sad and spread a little darkness. It's up to you. Walk through the valley of death and have no fear and all that stuff. It's just like that. So if you know you're going to make it to the other end of this valley, no matter what, you have a real easy choice to make. Are you going to be happy or are you going to be sad? Well, it wasn't a hard one for me to figure out. Once you realize that everything's going to be okay, that's when your life is going to get easier. But don't get it twisted. On this Hollywood set, I could make you feel a certain way. I could make the sun shine, make you want to go out for a nice jog. I could show bugs on the screen and make your blood crawl. Now, Hollywood is real if you allow it to be. Now, once you understand that the bugs on the screen can affect you, it's much like how your thoughts are. Even the most troublesome thoughts. It's really like bugs on the screen. What should you do? Realize and note and realize that that's not gonna really hurt you, because you know what? This is Hollywood. I have faith that everything's gonna be out and be okay anyway. But don't get me wrong. If you didn't know that it was fake, then you're just gonna go on down that journey and you're gonna be scared. And you're gonna live fearful and you're gonna breed untrustworthiness and untrust. Look here, Hollywood, baby. Don't let it affect you. You're gonna be alright. I think self-discipline is a big one. I think most of us, when we're growing up, we can't wait to get out of the house so nobody can tell us what to do. And for a small moment in your life, you're out there with no guidance and without a clue. Self-discipline comes in later. But this is how you have to do it. And it comes with first it comes with your thought process and your thought and the way your thoughts are ran. You want to keep it positive. So if you have some negative thoughts, instead of just, saying, hey, don't think about that or whatever, you need to attach something else to it. Like when a kid is doing something wrong and you give them a spanking, the kid be like, you know what, if I do that, I'm going to get a spanking, whoop, so I ain't going to do that. I ain't going to say go get a switch and give yourself a beat down. But I'm saying, maybe do 10 push-ups. If you have that negative thought about that boss and you said, you know what, I'm not going to let my boss, I'm not going to bring my work home, and you keep thinking about it, even though you say, and you catch yourself, and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to bring my work home. Look here, do a exercise that you hate doing, do it 10 times, and I guarantee you will stop bringing your work home or you're going to get swole. Most of the things we worry about anyway, it's almost like, have you ever seen that movie, The Oz or The Wizard of Oz? And Dorothy goes looking for this great and powerful Oz to get her back to wherever she got to go. And then when she gets there, she finds out that it's just this little skinny dude with a microphone that makes him sound all great and mighty. Well, that's how I feel about most things that trouble me. They're really not that great and mighty when you really think about it and breathe. Breathing is another good one. Breathing and having a silent 4 count will help you stay in the moment. It was a late night, and I had just did my rounds at a CNA job on a locked unit with Alzheimer's patients. I was doing my hourly log when there was a buzz at the door at the end of this long, long hallway. It was pretty late, so I normally am surprised when someone comes this late, and the nurse comes out of the office and she says, oh, that must be them right there. Buzz them in. So I buzzed this young couple in and an elderly gentleman. Come to find out, they weren't a couple, but they were brother and sister in their late 20s. And the elderly gentleman, he started looking at the fire hydrant, or the little fire extinguisher. He starts looking at that and looking at the tags as the brother and sister walks up the hall towards us at the main office. They get to the office and they start talking to us and they're whispering. They say, is there a back door? And the nurse said, yes, there is one. And they say, well, we can come back and fill out the paperwork tomorrow morning. We just need to get out of here because we told our dad that he was inspecting the building. And he's been a fire chief in this town for 35 years. The only way we can get him here was to tell him that he had to inspect it. So the nurse escorts them out the back door. The nurse goes into her office and closes the door. So the fireman, he goes into each room, checking fire alarms, making sure the batteries are good and fresh, and making sure all the extinguishers are up to date. He went through the whole place, climbing up on chairs, and I think I seen him climb on a desk and move some things, and he comes back to me at the table at the main office, and he says, "Where's my son and where's my daughter? As a matter of fact, you got a couple batteries that need to be changed in door number A and door number E. And the fire extinguisher down the hall needs to be re-up-to-dated. It's kind of old, and I wouldn't trust it if I was you. Where's my daughter and where's my son?" I said, "Well, sir," I said, "they left." He said, "That's odd." And he says, "Well, I could find my way home." And he walks all the way down this long hall to the end of the door, to the door where the door was. But before he got there, I said, "Sir, I can't let you out." And he kept walking like he didn't hear me. So he got to the door and he banged on the door a little bit, and he was like, "Son, buzz me out or whatever you got to do." And I said, "Sir, I can't let you out." And he said, "What do you mean you can't let me out? You know how many lives I've saved in this town? I'm a fire marshal. You better open this door, son, and you better do it now." So all of a sudden, I didn't answer him. I didn't know what to say. So he's commenced to throwing himself in the door, like knocking the door down. He was about to break the door down, getting out of this building. So here comes the nurse with this fat syringe filled with something. And my job is, if I see a patient hurting someone else or hurting themselves, I have to restrain them. I tried to restrain him, and he pushed me down to the floor like a rag doll. The dude was strong. We finally wrestled, and we finally gave him this shot. And we gone ahead and we laid him down in his room. And the next morning, he wakes up. I got to go feed him, and he's in... his hands are bound down to the bed, and his hands and his feet is bound to the bed, restrained, because we didn't know if he was going to hurt himself or not. But he hasn't eaten in 3 days. So I go into the room, I say, "Sir, you have to eat something." He says, "I don't want nothing." He said, "How am I supposed to eat with my hands tied down?" I was like, "You got a good point." I said, "You promise you'll eat if I take your right hand and let that one loose?" He says, "Yes." I said, "You promise?" He says, "Yes." He says, "You know what? Can I tell you something?" I said, "Go ahead." He said, "You know what hurts the worst?" I said, "What?" He said, "When my wife and I had our children, we never took them to a babysitter. We never took them to daycare because we didn't want nobody else, strangers, raising our children. And for them to put us in here with strangers, it really hurts me. This show right here will teach you how to interact with people, how to interact with your family, interact, and hopefully change yourself. This is the Dr. ThunderSun show. A Live World production.